This week on the SRC podcast, we talk about the importance of making your kicks. Fixtures not quite going to plan. Red, red, red. Tune in to find out more. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, the one and only Mr. Reliable, Double R, Robert Reese. Good evening, my friend. How are we?
Yeah, all good. But it's nice that we get a bit of light in the evenings and some better weather rugby now.
I mean, I'm happy with the better weather rugby, but this light in the evening stuff, the kids don't want to go bed, man. It's making it harder for me, and it's only getting worse.
That sounds like a you problem.
Well, there's many yous in this world, I'm telling you that much. Okay, shall we dive in? And we had a bit of a televised game. Nice to see. And oof, who would have predicted this sort of blowout? I mean, aye, of course you did. Of course you did. It it was massively intense. Like you could feel it. Like, and some great tries on show. A lot of good rugby, mostly by Cardiff. It does have to be said. But even going into half time, obviously with the way things are standing, obviously Llandovery, they'd lost two players, obviously substitute, but same position. Was 1914. Well, two of their bench spots used, players sort of out of position, and then with 14 men. So for the most part, the Drovers put up, a good fight, but as it generally will tell with a better team, the floodgates do eventually open, and Cardiff grabbed the bull by the horns and said, this is our game now, and fair play to them. They run in, Christ, what was it, 6, 7 tries, something like
Yeah,
that.
6 or 7 dozen, I think it was.
I got seven by double for Darwin Lewis, Derry Cross, Tom Bowen, Joe Goodchild, Ben Fry, and Aled Ward, with a handy 5 conversions from Harry Wild. But it wasn't all plain sailing. The game didn't exactly start off that way. Llandovery got two good tries themselves through Tommy Lewis and Adam Moran, both converted by Jack Maynard. But it seemed to be a bit of, if it can go wrong, it did go wrong for Llandovery. Johan Hughes pulling up before the game, Stuart Worrell getting injured, felt like 2 seconds into the game. His replacement, Tian Sparrow, 10 minutes on the clock, him off, and then it was barely after that George McDonald goes off with a red card, which, depending on which camp you're in, definitely a card, but the colour may be slightly up for debate. I don't know what your feelings are on that.
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones. Personally, I do feel it was a red. I know that we were on a chat before coming online, and I think you was looking more at the yellow, and it's not the first I've seen people
Yeah.
discussing it on beforehand. But you can see that that's where the game, obviously along with the other injuries, but that's where the game completely switched. You feel it was blow for blow effectively, and some really good rugby amongst two very strong teams out there. You can tell that by just the scorers on the try sheet, right? In terms of how good the 15s were for either side. What did you say? It was a close game really on the scoreboard, right up until that red card, and then in true good team fashion, Cardiff didn't just start. Oh, let's just chuck the ball about. We're gonna slaughter Llandovery by here. You build up to it, and then like you said, the floodgates do open. You find you have them 2, 3 tries in quick succession. The scoreline grows to that 6 point margin sort of area, and then all of a sudden you just can't hold it back. But Cardiff have got some decent form up at Churchbank. I'll be honest. The last 2 seasons, they've scored just shy of the 100 points up there. I think it works out as. And I know last season's was, I worked it out, I think it was 2005 was the last time Llandovery had a home defeat bigger than the Cardiff one last season. Obviously, this year's was not on that scale, but yeah, not a happy hunting ground when Cardiff Cardiff come round. Like I said, it certainly makes the playoffs interesting. Obviously, Newport keeping up their chase on the sort of the top two. Llandovery just being reeled back in, and Cardiff just putting down a bit of a marker. I think it was you said it last podcast. Newport and Cardiff are the two best teams at the moment in terms of form, etc. And right now, Cardiff are certainly showing it. And I'll be honest, you wouldn't want to be going to the Arms Park.
No, you really wouldn't, and it's in their hands right now. Cardiff they got an 8 point buffer over third place Newport. The game coming this Thursday night. We'll get onto that. It's not quite winner take all, but
If
it is for
it's sort of,
Cardiff.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how it goes. And, on the opposite end, Drovers dropping into fourth. I mean, it
Mm.
makes our battle for fifth absolutely crucial now. Because
Well, yeah, there's only
yeah,
5 points back to Swansea. You
yeah,
know.
because I mean, I do still back, the Drovers to, keep that fourth place, considering they've got Aberava and Pontypool to finish their season off. But
Yeah.
it does make whoever out of Swansea, RGC, possibly Quins, if bit of a long stretch at the minute. But that is the team's really competing for that fifth spot, and you'd be like you finish in that fifth, you're relishing that chance to go to Church Bank. You're like, this is a real opportunity to get into those semi-finals.
Yeah, and that's the other side of this, right? Is I I think if we remove RGC and Quins, I think they're relying on too many teams. They're going to rely on Swansea and Llandovery. I know Llandovery have got arguably a favourable fixture against Aberafon, although after this week's result, possibly not as favourable as we think. And Pontypool, I still have an inkling that they could turn a big team over before this season ends. But as you say, then Swansea now, not a bad performance this week. Home to Bridgend is probably one of them games on paper. You would say Swansea a strong favourite, but we'll come on to that in a bit. But yeah, I think this is the greatest thing I've said this season about the SRC is how close everybody is. It's the top spot is nearly decided, but then second and third you're sort of looking. That third and fourth spot, the fourth and fifth are sort of, you're thinking, all right, this each team could be finishing in like two. You still got Swansea, right? Could get that top thing, the top four. RGC and Quins could still balance it out, and obviously Aberafon and Bridgend then are still fighting it out for that last home game in the wild card spot. So there is so much still up for grabs, and we're 2 games away from the end of the season. There's obviously the pennant this year as well being awarded to the team that finishes top. So there's that added, bit of trophy where, despite what anybody wants to say. So yeah, I think going back into the to Llandovery, yeah, they're not on great form, and they got a bit of pressure on them now because I think, and I was speaking to a Llandovery supporter on Monday, and he agreed with me that this is the end of an era. He's confident they've got a lot of players retiring at the end of the season, which I think is fair to say. They've got, I think, around about 10 players 32 or above. We know already the likes of Lee Reese have called it a day, but the end of the season. And it'd be interesting to see either who moves on, who retires, etc., or who just drops down divisions, plays somewhere local. So there's a lot of pressure on a team like Llandovery in some ways that you've got to try and do justice for this sort of the final curtain call. So yeah, they'll be disappointed in how it went. But again, there's that frailty at the halfback, right? There's as effectively undone them in this Cardiff game. Ewan Hughes pulls out. They go in with George McDonald. The game is in a balance, but then he gets sent off. They haven't got a fly half. I know Jack Maynard has played there in the squad, but you're looking and going, well, they haven't got that depth. And we said the same around your nines and everybody. You're looking at it with like Steph Jack Jones, and he goes to Quins last week, and it's like, well, if Lee Reese doesn't play and Ewan Hughes isn't playing, they've only got George McDonald and Steph Jack Jones, and it's like, well, you know, you're struggling to start balancing those. If you get what I mean. I'm not saying that's the entire reason they've lost you, because you still got Lee Reese in there and you've still got your cover, but you just feel that, as you say, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Ultimately, you can't chance that you lose your two bloody, your two flankers on the same side. You can't chance it that you lose your star fly half and then get a red card, all pretty early on in the game. But hey ho, you got to turn this around now and really get into it going forward.
Yeah, we could go on and on about the state of the halfback position at the Drovers, but we will leave that for a future podcast. So bringing that Llandovery Cardiff game to an end, it did finish 14-45 in Cardiff's favour. A lovely 6-pointer with a 31-point gap, which seems astonishing, really, if you were looking at it without any context. On to the normal kickoff times on Saturday. And we've already mentioned them once. So we'll start off with Aberafan against Pontypool. And I mean, like I called the Aberafan win, you called the Pontypool win. It was probably quite even going in before the game of what was going to happen, of where it was actually going to swing, and the game sort of played out like that to a point. Aberafan, huge first half lead, Scott Whitlock hat trick, another try from Ashton Evans, giving them 24-0, and then second half kicks off and the Pontypool fight back starts, and they get two tries, they're looking good, and Aberafan kind of, they just kill it off then really with another try, and that deflated Pontypool. But one thing I noticed mainly looking at the highlights of this game, the amount of joy Aberafan got cutting through Pontypool's midfield defense. I,
Two tries through the centres, wasn't
I think it might have been more, because first one was a lovely set play. I think it was the right winger cut through on obviously inside pass to Scott Whitlock. It was a more or less similar but open play then again, Whitlock. And it just seems like a massive frailty, which
Yeah.
obviously I don't see Aberafan getting that sort of joy against other teams in terms of that midfield defense. But we've spoken about the front row, that scrum dominance sort of lacking a little bit, before Sam Scarf and Kelherd Griffith started reappearing there. But it seems there's a lot more, and you wouldn't have expected the midfield to have been an issue, because it was Kieran Meek and was it Joel Mahoney with him in the centre? So, two players who, by and large, last season were phenomenal. I mean, Joel
Mm.
Mahoney, his form was really pushing him to really be, for Dragons to really be looking at him.
Well, yeah, he
And
played in the Dragons Select, didn't he? Against, was
yeah,
it Starlet's game he played?
yeah, and it's just the whole thing has just gone tits up
Yeah.
essentially. And I don't know if it was because they were looking at the rebuild under Tom Hancock or whatever, but things have not gone right. The chief effect, again, I think we mention it every single week. It's faded, or is basically not there, because you're expecting that fight from the pack with Pontypool, and I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, they've been really disappointing, and it was very much the same again this week from Pontypool. Pack was decent. The back line was definitely not extremely porous. That midfield combination, again, highlighting that as a major issue. And you can't let a team like Aberafan get away from you. You can't let anybody get away from you in this league. They said they come back and then the game just got away from them again. And this one thing I just don't get with Pontypool is they make all these changes, bringing in people. They have got to start looking at why this isn't working. They've got some very senior Dragons involvement, throughout the team. The likes of Ewan Ross are dropping in. Hugh Anderson has been in this season, or Morgan Lloyd has been in there this season. Harry Ford, even in the back line. Let's remove the boys up front. Logan Franklin. they've got a lot of players in there that are supposed to be high quality, and we know are high quality, and it's just not happening. The first two games, the Ebervale Pontypool derby at Christmas and the Chief, there was a lot of fight. You were thinking, oh, here we go. Understandable. They've lost the two games. They threw away a big lead in the home tie, never really got into it in the away tie. But at the time, Ebervale were runaway league leaders. So you're going, okay, maybe this is not the benchmark that we need to ultimately compete against. And it's like they've just dipped completely off since, and they just hit rock bottom. They are now literally rock bottom of the actual league. 19 points, only 3 wins all season, and are 7 points off their nearest competitor. Well, straight away, that's going to go down to the last game. And you just don't see where points are coming from at this stage, never mind anything else. So for a team that has been steadily consistent at fifth spot, and that we've said, consistently better than the rest by at least a few wins. Not quite as good as the top four by a couple as well, but in that sort of middle on their own. This has been an absolute catastrophic drop away. And I don't see where it gets better because Sam Scarf and Dylan KG are not going to be around for much longer. They're going to be straight back into the Dragons setup when they're needed. Hugh Anderson's pretty much the same. Morgan Lloyd will expectedly join up with the Dragons at some stage. Obviously, he's injured at the moment. Ewan Rosser doesn't tend to drop down that much. So all of a sudden, you can see that these boys are getting game time, but they're not going to be around to aid in these key positions. And it's a shame because the back three have been going quite well, but just nothing around it. But a word on Aberravon, this is a superb victory for them because not only does it give them a home tie as it stands in the wild card, and we all know how difficult the player's tag is to go to, but ineffectively you lose that game, and again, it's not quite the season you're done, but it sort of felt like that because you only got to look at the points, Bridgend, 26. You're still fighting for it, especially as we know with the fixtures they got to play people like Llandovery. That's the season done for Pontypool, though. That is the season done for me now. They'll be travelling away. And again, confidence booster for Aberravon before theirs. It'll be one of Quins or RGC away for Pontypool in all likelihood. Um, and yeah, you don't particularly want to go to either of those places. I think Pontypool would suit Quins more, as in like that's who they would prefer to play. But yeah, when there's no momentum there at all, it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's hard to really put any sort of positive spin on Pontypool at the minute. I mean, even just talking about both teams in this game, Aberavon have sort of steadily improved over the last few weeks. Obviously, this result is looking good right now. We'll see, how much attention we can actually give it in probably the coming next week. Obviously, they play Carmarthen Quins down in Carmarthen, then the Drovers the week after. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they actually turn out on that. Is it a case of they are improving, or Pontypool just that poor at the minute? But these are teams that were 5-6 last season, and they're 10-8 right now, and all likelihood is they're going to stay that way. But it's not just Pontypool that's had a bit of a shock season. Aberravon can play that part as well, but at least they seem to be turning around and getting
Mm.
some. The performances were first, and they obviously they've got a win where they could. So massive
That's
congrats.
that's what you got to do, right? And I'll be honest, a player I rated very highly for a number of seasons now, but this season he's shone when they've struggled. Is Scott Whitlock? I rate him as probably top of my head top three scrum halves in the league, and that sounds like a bold claim, but I would put him in that position. I mean, you only got to look around the clubs, and you go, well, yeah. I think Lee Reese at Llandovery, Cardiff. I don't know if there's anyone better than him. Possibly Ebervale. I wouldn't say there is. Newport. Dav Buckland's having a good season, but I don't know if he's as good as Scott Whitlock is as natural a player, especially if we put them in that position. So yeah, I think you run through the league and it very quickly run out the names, and you got to keep players like that because that's what you build around now. Aberravon are, I think they're probably 2 years into their project. Local talent, very young. Yes, they got to understand that they're not going to get very far with it in the immediate term because you're not. No disrespect to Aberravon Green Stars, Baglan, Tartar, teams like that. You won't recruit players from them and become a silverware contending team in a season.
No.
We seen Ebervale build, and they're effectively in season 4 now, and you can see it took 3 seasons before they were probably fighting for it.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Obviously, you can take players from those teams, and I don't mean as in take their best players, but you take the ones you see that are young, they have potential. You're like, we want to nurture you. When you not play for us, obviously, you can have the opportunity back at your home club, which is as it should be. If you build in teams of 35 plus in the SRC. You've got to have that drop down, and it needs to phase through. Otherwise, there's going to be so many clubs just not playing games. But that is a wider problem. It's a case of who are they picking on to bring some experience in as well, because it's all well and good having all these youngsters coming in. Yeah, we're focusing on local youth. We're bringing them all through. Our average age is 23 or whatever it is, but you still need players to learn from. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with going, you know what? They're not going to play every game, but years 3 or 4, 30 plus, and then we'll sign over the next year or two. And that experience, that sort of mentorship role they would bring will
Yeah,
enhance the players massively, because there's only so much obviously a coach can do. There's only so much a mentoring player can do. But you get them together, and it's the ideal scenario. And having those relationships with those teams, local teams around them, it does allow them to go, okay, look, we're gonna can we try this kid for 2-3 games, blah blah blah, and we'll work it out that way. You find a way to manage it. You drip feed them in so that when they are probably ready at 22, 23, they come in ready, got a rocket up their arse. They want to prove a point, and that is their end goal really, to try and have a 100% Aberravon based team competing hard. And they competed hard this week and they got a 38-14 win. Nice 6 points. They've been few and far between in the entirety of SRC. Their first one this season.
deserve it though because we've said that they're doing this season a bit like what Swansea done last year, where they're putting a performance in for 60, 70 minutes, or a very good performance over 80, but weren't getting the results that they probably deserved at times. And it's results like this you go, actually, is great to see. They faced adversity, like you said, they're changing around, and the cap I don't think went as they wanted to, and obviously the coaching changes, etc. as well, on top of a load of player changes. But yeah, I think it's good to see Aberravon putting a good result in.
100%. On to our next game. We have Newport at home to Bridgend, and result in the end went the way we all expected. It was a comfortable win for Newport. They ran in 5 tries, 21-5 at half time, and finished 35-20. But I'm going to come on to this point with another team as well. Bridgend getting the 4-try bonus point, but no conversions.
Yeah,
That fourth try when Rowley does go over, sort of not quite in the corner, but up that side. If that was the fourth conversion being kicked, you're talking 33. Oh, sorry, no, 35. 28
yeah,
possibly,
yeah.
and it's a one score game, and it's all on. And I think it's something we've discussed with Bridgend. They've got great kickers, but for whatever reason, this season especially, they're not nailing them, and I can't fathom why. One thing can go forward for Bridgend is the fact that they had 3 more tries out of this game, and unless Newport were facing a Llandudfri and Ebbw Vale, you wouldn't really be expecting them to concede 3 more tries. So that might be a bit of a frailty there. But on the attacking front, just wow. some of the rugby they're putting on,
Yeah.
and it's not just silky hands. I'll be honest, I was surprised. I haven't really watched a lot of him, but Harrison James, the size on the kid, he just
Mm.
walks through people. It was really,
I'm surprised
wow.
that Cardiff pros let him go a couple of seasons ago. To be honest, he never got the game time he deserved at Cardiff either. Cardiff RFC. Um, as you say, Newport are starting to get settled and have support in the right areas, and they do make it look easy at times, especially when they play at home. It's like Spitty Park just suits their style of rugby to an absolute T, but it does frustrate me, and it hugely frustrates me to the point that sometimes I'm shouting obscenities at the TV when kickers miss like four conversions, like out of four, because you go in, that's 8 points. We're not including any penalties you're going to have a pop at. You can't be missing that many points because ultimately it will cost you games. And I'm not saying it costs them the game here, but it certainly costs them an opportunity. And also, the scoreboard ticking just relieves pressure. It puts pressure on and releases pressure on yourself. So Newport might not get that score, an additional score. So all of a sudden, it becomes a whole lot closer. Even if you compete at your 75% average, that's still 6 points missed. That's another score closer. You push in there and go, actually, we could get a bonus point out of this, but also it takes away on the other foot. It's not that Bridgend cared about this particularly, but it takes away a bonus point from Newport all of a sudden because you're not at that 15-point margin.
Yeah.
You know what I
Just
mean? So it pisses me off when people have such a bad day. And you can't say, oh, it's the same for both teams, because it is. The other team kicked their fucking points.
Yeah, 100% for Harrison James on this day. But all fairness to Bridgend, they they found an area they could target. They didn't get many opportunities that day, but they did get in there. The final Rowley try, you know, just a bit of like not quite magic in what we would normally say in rugby, but he just slipped and somehow got out of whatever tackle was being attempted on him and just straight through it. So, all fairness to Bridgend, they got the bonus point. It keeps them within touching distance of Aberavan. And, we'll go to see how they finish this season now. So 35-20 in Newport's favour. And we come on to that second team I was just referring to. So RGC at home to Carmarthen Quins. And it starts as it normally does up at RGC. They get the first try. But Quins, they start putting up their fight. And they get a nice push over. No, it's a maul try from Lee Taylor. Splinters off. He's coming in behind and over he goes. Elan Phillips, second game in a row. You know, bit of really good skill from him. Obviously, the televised game, we saw him dive inside, beat a couple of players, and go over. This game, we see him take the ball out wide, chip through, collect, and go over himself. So, absolutely brilliant. Didn't show the third try, which had me scratching my head a bit. I had to rewatch those highlights to make sure I didn't miss something. But it was a really it was a hard end to the first half for Quincy. Obviously, they were 13-7 up, and RGC on the attack. They take it right down to the corner, and it looks as though Quins have got the turnover there. But I think they give a penalty for who was it? I want to say Jack Howell's not rolling away quite as quick as he could have. Penalty could have easily gone the other way for holding on before that. But in that moment, as they turn around to go line, Billy McBride out of nowhere just nabs that ball and touches it down to take it 12-13 at the half. And I think that was a bit of a swinging point. The momentum then pushed into RGC's favour. And second half came, and I'm still not quite sure what happened with Quins here because his second week on a bounce, their second half just isn't as good. And RGC, they run in, another, I think, 2-3 tries. Gabe McDonald responds with Quinn's fourth, a 4-try bonus point. Hooray! Yay, Quins! We got it. You watch the highlights, you see Gabe McDonald, he crashes the ball up, makes good ground, ball switches back the other way. I think one or two phases, he takes again, and he takes two men over with him to get that fourth try. So nice power from that kid. But again, this is a game where we see Quinn's miss all four conversions,
Yeah.
which means when that try comes, there was a possibility to go 34-31. Had you scored all your conversions. And it's a massively different game at that point. The scoreline finishes 41-23 in RGC's favour. That's 18 points. But you have like we've already just discussed it in the exact same way for Bridgend. You nailed didn't even need that many, 2-3 of these conversions. It's a one score game, and RGC a squeaky bum time as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's absolutely massive, and I might have some news on that front for Quinn's coming into next week. But for now, I'll let you
Is
finish off.
Aled Thomas coming back again? Come
Oh,
on, lad,
who
you
knows?
legend.
Who knows? He'll never
He could
finish.
kick a fucking conversion with his fucking slippers on.
You know what? He's gonna come on in the 79th minute of one game every season until he dies. That is gonna be Aled Thomas, and I'm here for it. 100 fucking percent. I love it.
Yeah, nah, Quinn's been frustrating like this season. Quite a few games. They've dropped off a lot in the second half. They started the season with a really good defense and they sort of held out, but it's like the foot just comes off the gas a little. I don't know whether I said I've mentioned it. I think it's a fitness issue, but I also think they're struggling at the moment with discipline. And I don't just mean with penalties. I mean with generic shape and holding what you're doing and keeping the plan at the wrong times. We've seen it on TV, the other week, and you think, what are you doing? You're doing it at the wrong time, and then you lose. And you're going, well, this is so frustrating because if you're playing in the right areas, doing the right things, being patient, not giving away your penalties, then ultimately you can get into these games along with kicking your kicks at goal successfully. Again, all you need is 75%, and there's another 6 points on the board, another score closer, but also just brings that gap down. RGC are very much a momentum side. When you miss one conversion, you sort of go, yeah, nah, it's okay, it's okay. You miss the second, you're like, frustrating, frustrating. You miss that third, and everyone in the crowd, your team, yourself are going, for fuck's sake, here we go. What have we got to do today? Because especially if the tries aren't just come in and flow in and going, here we go, try, try, try. You work your bollocks off it. It could be a very physical try, a lot of phases, set piece, etc. to get into it. You work hard, and then, like you said, your kicker's leaving another big score out there. And RGC don't have that because Billy McBride is superb, and that's what I mean. You just got to have these generals just to oversee, and Quinn's don't have that.
No, I mean, I can revert back to the start of the season, and the expectation was it was going to be Ellis Price and Carwyn Leggett Jones battling that 10 shirt out, and obviously we knew who was going to win that battle from before this they even kicked the ball. And obviously we've seen that with 18-year-old Carwyn, was 17 at the time of talking about all this, getting his games with the Scarlets starting up there. But the fact that they have had to revert to Aled Thomas and using Ivan Davis, who
And Steph
you know
Jack Jones.
and permitting, as in getting permission, not just from Scarlets, from Llandudno as well, to play, what is essentially their player. And I don't, I didn't mind Steph Jack, if him and Pricey, I can see work, I can see work. But yeah, it's just really, it's not ideal. And then when we look at the nine situation, Rodri Davis is the starting nine. He's been injured, I think, 99% of the season. I'm not even 100% sure he's played a game. Rodri Lewis is our drop down guy from the Scarlets Academy. He's injured more often than not. We brought in Aaron Hemmings from. Again, I'm still not 100% sure where he's come from. Like Swansea was his last known location last year. But, he was even missing. We're playing Bowen Clark, who is. I don't know if 9 or 10 is his favourite position because he's played both throughout youth and even into now. So I'm seeing him more as a scrum half, hopefully. But again, I think he's an 18, 19 year old. So we're like you're putting kids and unfamiliar people in these very pivotal roles. And when you need them to dictate a game, you need these guys to go, okay, our RGC, they've gone 2 scores up on us now. Okay, they're playing fast. We need to slow this game down, get a bit of territory. Let's sort this out. Let's break them down, bring them down to our game. Let's get a forward battle. Let's tire them out a bit. It's just not there,
Yeah.
and it'll be interesting to see how that changes. In the summer, if there is some recruitment going on, I'm hoping that it is. But as of right now, and as of all season, it's been a weakness that we've spoken about, and is one that's going to continue till the end of the season at least. So 41-23 to RGC in this game. We now head over to a final game of the round, and we see I don't want to say resurgent because they haven't exactly had a big drop off, but a very, very good Swansea side host Ebbw Vale. And this one must have had you squeaking towards the end.
Never in doubt, Martin. Never in doubt. No, it was one of those ones like last sort of play of, well, not the last play of the game, the last phase, last minute of the game. Dav Thomas makes a big break down the line. Bearing in mind at this point, this was at 33-29 at this stage, to Swansea. Makes the break, just about gets brought down, bit of scramble defence, pile in, penalty at the breakdown. Ebervale kick it long, kick it into the corner. Bearing in mind as well, this player's missing everywhere because there was, 5 yellows and a red card in this match. You got Yaya
Ridiculous.
Morris at hooker, sends him in, down for the maul, and Ebervale drive it over for a win. But it's how the hell you get 5 yellows and a red out of this? You and Shenton red carded. Ebervale was soft in defence, which is unusual for them. They are usually the pace setters, but you can see the amount of chop and change this past few weeks has resulted in high scoring games against Newport twice, effectively. Now Swansea. And yeah, this is a huge win for Ebervale just to get back on the sort of on the cart. They've had 11 first team players missing, which is going to, really slow down any team. Doesn't matter which of the teams in that top 4. If you took 11 players out, they're gonna struggle to start of get a bit of continuity. And you Swansea seem to play the conditions a bit better as well. There was Ebervale were much better at the set piece despite the changes of combinations, but they wanted to run it a lot from 9. Obviously, quite a few 9s missing. Dan Burfrey started, Carter Pritchard in from the Dragons. Hasn't really featured that many times this season, but they were trying to pick and go all the time from the base, struggled to get any sort of momentum. I Cam Davis did impress in midfield, which is going to be huge because I think Ethan Phillips is probably going to be out till the quarterfinals with suspension. So I mean, that's going to be a big one given that they've only got 2 centres really. You got Ian Evans, sort of, is a utility back, but he's not an out and out centre. And yeah, it's just the defence. Like you could see the combinations weren't used to working with each other. A lot of changes, looked a bit disorganised. Again, that big fullback who wasn't a fullback. Looked really good. Matt Prothero, always really good. And yeah, Swansea put up a good fight out of this one and deserve what they got out of it as well. It is fair to say. They're playing some lovely stuff. They kept themselves in it. We've already mentioned about an early red card. Ewan Shenton did go quite early in this game. I think it was 8-3 or 8-5, something like that, when he went off very early in the game, and he could have gone first play with a swinging arm, if I'm honest. But Swansea keeping the game. And when you keep in the game, you keep the scoreboard ticking, you keep the momentum away from your opposition. You're in it, in this case, till the final play. And I think it's just that bit of quality with Ebervale around the set piece. A player like Dav Thomas just making that initial big break that puts him under the pressure. Sean Parry, absolutely superb, got everywhere. I think a lot of the front row deserve plaudits in this as well. They had to go through a lot of work in this game because of the type of game it was. It's not one for the front row union, but yeah, I think Swansea put them in a solid position. I'll be honest. I said it would be a close game, knowing that the injuries that Ebervale had and where Swansea were, and it keeps our top four not quite sealed yet as well, with Swansea getting some points out of this one.
Yeah. I'm looking at your squad for this one, and outside of your halfbacks, it is the regular names, but obviously it's the combinations that we're not so much used to,
Well, well,
which
that's just it. Like you can sort of work through each position, and you see you got Basanko out, Franchi out, Morgan Williams out. Dylan Bartlett went off in the game. Jack Pope is out. Ryan Jenkins is out. Owen Conker was out. That's just the pack. Then you go to nine. You got Rory Harris, John Evans, Griff Tuff, Evan, and obviously Dorian not available at 10. Ewan Bowden on the wing. There's obviously Ethan Phillips missing in midfield. So there's a lot around who who is missing. As you say, it's probably the combinations that are just unusual rather than the players aren't good enough. But I think you can see it like Charlie Manship. He's run through the bench, right? Charlie Manship was it one try this season? He's been at the third choice hooker across the competitions. Reagan Jones, Young Dragons Academy. He's 18, 17. Kerry Jones's boy.
yeah.
Hasn't appeared at all this season. Adam Court, quality player, really impressed with his scrummaging, etc. But he's back fresh from injury. Alfred Bateman Lloyd, straight out of Christ College, what's it, 20 years old. Joe Reese Weldon, again, one of the younger Reese Weldon boys. Carter Pritchard, again, was he with the under 19s and with Wales not so long ago. Morgan Richards, right, the familiar name at fullback. He's probably your first choice fullback normally, but again has pulled out of a game recently with an injury. Obviously Ryan Gardner then coming in on the covering wing effectively. Those two they're going to flip around. Morgan's going to cover fullback. So you can see they're not your first team players, and I think that's probably where you look. Out of those 8 players on the bench, I would probably say 2 would get in a starting 15 regularly with Ebervale without being disrespectful to anybody else. Um, so yeah, it's interesting, but they're gonna have a few players back, and there might be someone back, Martin, for the quarterfinals that hasn't played this season but is very familiar to Ebervale supporters. I'm just gonna leave that hanging and let
Ooh.
let people work out who that is. I'll give them the clue. He's in the backs, and I'll let everyone else work out who that could be.
Did was his brother perhaps in this game?
I can't fucking tell you these sort of clues, Martin.
Oh,
What
I
are you
think
gonna
I
ask
think
next?
I,
Has,
I,
has,
I
has
think
he
he's
got a
going out for there.
mustache? Has he got a mustache? No. Or if you're playing the guess who in Ebervale, does she have a mustache?
Oh, harsh
Oh,
words
harsh word.
about
Oh,
your own. Oof, oof. No, this another game where you know those kicking points have would have given a lot of breathing room or made things a bit easier. Tom Price only slotted in 2 of his 4 conversions, much better than the
yeah,
aforementioned Quins
yeah.
and Bridgend. I am curious how Tom has gone. So obviously he's come from, what was it, Bedford Blues. This apparently, obviously in the championship, and everyone always moans about, the championship is so much better than SRC. But I'm not exactly seeing someone who's a
He,
starting 10 in the championship really show
no,
up then, essentially.
no, he's a very smart player and he likes to play. He's not a huge distributor. He's not like, he's not shredding defenses, sorry. He can get a backline moving, but he's your reliable steady. He's efficient with his kicking out of hand, but he hasn't got a huge cannon on him, which is what Ebervale like to use around the territory, the set piece. So he's a very steady player. I would say middle of the park is probably unfair. He's superb off the tee. I think the conditions, the wind was ridiculous. play a massive factor into his percentage rate. But it doesn't sound like he's going to be a long-term option to stick around him. I don't think he's going to look to be there next season. But again, that's interesting because you go look, Evan Lloyd comes back in, but then you looking at cover then. So, but yeah, I think the notion that the championship is ridiculously high quality, aside from the top few who spend a lot of money in
Pro money.
comparison. Yeah, even if you spend £1.5 million, that's the operating costs of
The league.
a few clubs, like, you know what I mean, like like I said, that the actual salary cap is 150k, right? 160k now, sorry. So you can see if you operate a 1.6 million budget in the championship, which a few of the top side do, or comfortably above, then all of a sudden you got the same budget as the entire league. So yeah, he's very steady playing. In fairness, he's come in and done a job on such short notice. But I think they'd be looking at Evan Lloyd being back now in the next few weeks, and I think you'll see him come pretty much straight back in.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Obviously having Dorian for a good chunk of the season has helped. We saw that not having a backup 10, proper backup 10 last season
Yeah.
didn't help you. But again, that seems to be another issue for you to work through. Swansea, very good in this game. Well worth their 5 tries. Matthew Aubrey. Oh, which Lloyd is that? I want to say Liam Lloyd. Obviously, that
Lloyd.
big fullback and Jake Roberts. And then a penalty try against Ebu Vale.
The penalty tries.
Oof.
God, we
Oof.
haven't seen one of them in a while.
Oh, I know. It's
Just
not
a
as though you saw one earlier in the
penalty
game for
try.
yourself, is it? But
Yeah.
no, 34-33 game finishing. That's good stuff, especially considering the conditions Swansea actually played in, down to 12 men at one point, which is
Yeah.
again it's maddening, absolutely maddening. So that rounds up last week's action. We come on to this week, so we're roughly half a point. So like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you like. If you're enjoying listening to us, support us whatever way you feel you can or that you want to. So again, if you are listening, thank you for that. It does boost the ego a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is a live TV game, and it is Thursday night lights. So we will leave that one for last. And we come to an Australian derby where Swansea travel to Bridgend. And I've got some words from
Ooh.
from the Jawbreaker, pod
Pod,
exclusive.
pod exclusive.
Yeah, Joe Thomas has broken his jaw in 2 places from that Ebu Vale game. He's got 3 metal plates in his chin, in his face. Oh, that's it's going to be interesting if there's ever a comeback from that one. But we go. So nice and quick from Joe this week. Good tough game. Going down to 12 men at one point didn't help. Really proud of the fight and quality of the rugby produced. Togetherness of the group shone through, and unlucky to lose that last play of the game. Looking forward to the challenge. Okay, mostly about the Ebu Vale game. But like he said, they produced a really, really good showing when they were at 14, 13, 12 for periods of that game. And to play a team that is top of the table, okay, they've gone off form. And I know we, peaking at the right time sort of thing. You know what I mean? But,
Martin. As a man who ever knocked out to the knockout stages last year, I'd be piping down, son.
pure luck. Pure
Pipe,
luck.
pipe down, Martin.
Pay the ref, I
Oh
heard.
shit on
Pay
your
the
shirt, by
ref.
the way.
Aye, aye. Pure pride, this is, my friend. You wouldn't know what that is. Wouldn't know what that is. You just buy banners. You don't wear things on your shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, I have actually seen you on TV wearing a jersey, so I can't actually say that.
Hang on. It's on my leg. See, Martin? I
What am I
literally,
looking at?
I
Why
literally,
have you got a smudge? Did
like that. Like I literally bleed green, red, and
uh,
white.
did you just lie in your dog shit or something? I mean, Jesus Christ, but you shouldn't be
Yeah.
showing that on
Come
the
on,
camera.
Martin. Keep it coming, son.
Terrible,
Keep it
terrible.
coming.
We're not even facing each other. Not even facing each other. Leave it there. Okay, so Bridgend Swansea. Look, 2 teams not even relevant to this. We're talking about it. So Bridgend and Swansea. Um, okay, Bridgen showed a lot of good fight. They got that pack working with the maul. If they can get themselves into those positions, I do think they can trouble Swansea. Being at home will help. Swansea, and despite the loss, really good form. They they've come up against some tough opposition and they've come through. I mean, last season was 100% a complete total write off, and they're now, what was it, six games in a row before the Sebeville game, and you take away that red card or even one of the yellows, and you never know because it was one moment that won this game, like literally at the death. So despite the loss, not Quinn, Swansea still very, very much on form. And I can see Bridgen making a few dents, but I can't see them doing enough to, win out the game.
Yeah, I think this could be another high scoring game both ways. I fancy it to be a very competitive game on that front. I think both sides want to play some progressive rugby, and I'm interested to see if Bridgen's maul goes well again this week because obviously Ebervale had success against Swansea. We always go on about the back row balance. Obviously, Shenton, I say should will be missing out the way that the disciplinary system works. He could well actually make this game and then get banned for a different game. But you would expect that he would be missing. And then you look at like your Bowden, Giannini, Hopkins, and players like that. It's in favour of Swansea, I'll be honest, and that's who I think will win this. And it wouldn't surprise me if they eke it into that second score, but I don't think it'll be comfortable. I think it'll be back and forth a lot. I think Bridgen will make them earn it. Bridgen are playing some lovely rugby, so I expect a lot of exposed defences. Joe Thomas, obviously now being out for the rest of the season, is going to open up some gaps in midfield in terms of new combinations. And I also think it'll be interesting to see if Swansea do stick with what they know in terms of, does Prothero stay in at fullback? I think he probably does. Does that big fullback, Lewis Edwards, stay in the wing? Probably. But can you imagine a backline where you've got Edwards, Prothero, and one of Houston or Cornelius on the other wing?
Oh,
Oh,
I wouldn't put Houston on there. I don't think you can, like, three fullbacks. I don't know.
yeah, but
I think I'd like I'm not sure where I'd like Lewis Edwards on either side really because he's a brilliant defender. Obviously, he's got his attacking side, but I think I might prefer him on the right wing. But obviously, this is more in depth Swansea fan sort of talk, and we don't want to be proclaiming either of us to be one of them.
definitely not, sir. Definitely not. Touche.
Touche. Whatever. Okay, so you've gone for Swansea. I've gone for Swansea. There's one person left, and oof, what is he liking this week, my friend?
So, Bookie, I got to read this because I'm quoting you. Being an Australian derby that doesn't involve Aberravan, I couldn't give less of two fucks, and therefore I'm going for a 0-0 draw.
0-0 draw.
That may well be a quote, it may not, but that is definitely a possible quote that John would give us.
And being an Australian derby, you wouldn't expect lots of points to be scored. So 0-0 may well be right.
I have seen Aberravan in a 0-0 draw before as well.
Ooh. I think we've covered this recently.
Yeah, I think we did. This is crowbarring Aberravan back into every conversation again. John, are you there?
Well,
John?
we don't have to because we're bouncing straight into their trip to Carmarthen Park.
Hey.
I got a couple short words from Mr. Steph Thomas. Where are you? Da, 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 da. Oh, I gotta make sure I read the right one now. Unlucky to come away with just a single point last week. Little more accuracy, and we could have, had the full set ourselves. That point could be vital. Still all to play for. And we have two huge home games to end the league program. Avon will be full of beans after a good win. I like that. But we will be more than ready for the challenge. And I can say that Ellis Price plays this week.
Hey.
A proper 10. Or is he a proper? I think, okay, there's more to be debated there. But yeah, so some good news on the injury front for Quins, and I think it's already pretty obvious which way I'm swinging in this. I tend to swing Carmarthen, regardless. But I'm just looking at that Pontypool win for Aberafan, seeing all that joy they got in midfield, and I can't see that happening against Quins. I can see them against some joy, of course, but I can't see them getting, what was it? Where are they? I can't see them getting 5 tries or even 3 tries worth of joy out of Quinn's midfield there. And that's where I'm sticking, being at Carmarthen Park, knowing they can put that performance, and 2 second halves in a row where they haven't quite done it. It is do or die now. If they want to get back into that top 6, if they want to challenge for that top 5, they've got to do it now. It's Aberafan year. They are relying on other results, but Ebbw Vale lock up the league this week. You need to rest all the players you can. Really, you can't be risking anyone. So you could be sending a depleted squad for that final round. So there's everything to play for Quins. Aberafan, obviously they want that, what is it, 10, 9, 8th spot, and they may already be safe. Like, I know there's only a 3 point gap with them and Bridgend, but seeing how the fixtures Bridgend have got, like, I'm not saying it's out of the realms of possibility Bridgend win both them games, because
Yeah.
of course they can, but I'm thinking Aberafan, they want to isolate, they want to lock down this 8th position. So I'm thinking Quins are probably going to want this one more as well.
Yeah, do you know what? It's really tough because I I do think that Quins will win this one, and I think that Quins will have the better start, a bit more of a solidified game plan. But then equally in the back of my mind is thinking, are Aberafan going to string a load of stuff together now and start pulling the performance a good 60 minutes? Do they have a big second half comeback? I'm going to stick with Quins on this one, I'll be honest. I think that they're showing more consistency where Aberafan are not, and I think that's going to be the key. But if Quins don't turn up for 40 minutes of this game, they will not get that result. They
No.
won't. Because Aberafan are too much of a good side at the moment to just need 40 minutes to turn them over. And that's what you want in this league. But I do think this game is, again, this is a do or die for Quins. They win this game, they've still got that sixth spot that they can get. They lose this game, no, it's game over. You're done.
Yeah, I can't
For,
have that.
for me.
And is Bucky supporting his old crew again?
Of
Yeah.
course, he's back in Aberafan again.
Oh, goodbye,
He's,
goodbye.
he's loving it.
So that brings us on to Ebbw Vale at home against RGC. And now it does need to be said that you only need a win. You don't need any bonus points,
Correct.
because your 80 points and 14 wins will be better than Cardiff's 13 wins and 80 points. And that's their maximum. And obviously, it's no guarantee they're going to get there. So I can see a good solid win for Ebbw Vale. RGC are playing some great rugby, on some great tries, but when they come up against someone physical, like they have done against Swansea in the final, like they did for 40 minutes against Quins,
Yeah.
they struggle, and that's your forte. So
Yeah.
you take the rest away.
Yeah, and I think there's a possibility as well with another week on that there's a couple of players might be back as well for Ebbw Vale. I think the pitch, again, we talked about how Spitty Park suits how Newport play. I think Eugene Cross exactly suits how Ebbw Vale want to play. It's a bit heavier in the foot. It's still mixed weather, so the pitch will be good, but it won't be the fast track that RGC are wanting. It'll be a very open in terms of your conditions game. So the conditions get in there. You do have a swirling wind because of where it is. You do have mixed seasons, and quite literally, just last weekend we had your lovely sunny sort of cold and wind. Then it stopped. We had literally hailstones, and then it turned to sleet. So, and I'm not kidding, all of this is within probably a couple of hours. So you can see how a game changes. I think Ebbw Vale are going to be buoyed by getting back on the bandwagon against Swansea. I think they want to get the combination's tested now, and I think you are right. You seal the league that this week. I think you change a couple. I don't think you go all out rest. I don't think you can do that because obviously you've got a week off with the wild cards then before getting back into playing a wild card team. So you don't want to be sitting down doing nothing effective. Well, you do the training, but you don't want to be sitting down and not getting your match time. But yeah, I could see someone like say Charlie Manship coming back in. For example, starting at hooker if you seal it in that final game. So yeah, I think Eberville will take this one through. I mean, I'm more interested in seeing how RGC take this on because we're on about how Quins can keep themselves alive in this top four hunt. Effectively, you're looking at RGC, and Ebervale could do Quins a favour here because if RGC takes say 1 point out of this, let's just say they take one, but Quins can get a win. You flip it because there's only the 1 point in it. You quite literally flip who's getting that extra week rest going forward.
100%. And what has our dear friend Mr. Harris said?
Well, Mr. Harris, just looking by you, he loves the steel, man. He does love it. So he's going with Ebervale win.
Ooh, we've got
Yeah.
a clean sweep
Whoosh.
across the board.
Love it.
Okay, our final Saturday game before we come on to that tasty, tasty television tie. Pontypool against Llandovery. I mean,
Mm,
Pontypool, we've said already, worst form in quite a few
you.
years. To be fair, probably dating back to maybe Christ, I can't like maybe I don't even know. That's how long it's
Well,
been since like I know they've had lower divisions,
well,
but
that's just it though. Like that's what kills this off because they've been back in the top division now. Was it 4 years, 5 years, maybe
something
four
like that,
years?
yeah.
They had was it 4 years then basically since being back in what was then the Premiership. So your best part of a decade since Pontypool were sort of last at the top level, or without winning seasons. And that's unheard of. They've had plenty in their history. Obviously, they went down at one stage, so they would have had a bit of a struggle there. But yeah, I be honest, this is land very comfortable for me. I know Poole have given them actually a couple of good games over the past couple of seasons, including in playoff rugby. But there's nothing about this Pontypool side at the moment that screams to me that they're going to challenge Landovery. The only strength they got is their pack. I think Landovery matched them around the set piece. I think, maybe they can get into that. But yeah, I just see it as a comfortable Landovery win. And Landovery, if they lose this, that's second gone out the window. Completely gone. You got no hope at all. So that ends their season effectively. And then they got to look at travelling away. And that's effectively what you want to do. I know that it's going to be tough for them to get
Well,
second anyway, but
I mean,
it might
second
be,
second could be gone in 24 hours.
yeah,
You
second
know,
could be gone by the time they play. But then it comes down to where do you want to play? And no one's ever going to go out and intentionally finish third or fourth to get a better semi-final tie. But they also got to watch. They're also watching, as we've already said, over their shoulder with Swansea. If they slip up and Pontypool get a result, Swansea get the results. On the roads, on the road in the Australian derby, and you go in. Well, hang on a minute. All of a sudden, it's very conceivable that Landovery finish the week outside the top four. And when you consider that they've been as high as second this season, and pushing Ebervale for first, then it is not inconceivable that Landovery fall out that top four, which is remarkable again, given their success over the past 4 to 5 years.
yeah, but even then, we have seen Llandovery come from fourth to win the whole thing. I know that we are talking, I want to say
Yeah,
3 years ago now, but we know when they want they can, and they do still have the squad to do it. You know, we're going to see the knockouts. We're going to see Leary's and Ewan Hughes. Provided there isn't any issues there, we're going to see them backs together. And I do think this Pontypool and obviously Aberravon following. are actually going to come at the right time. They've got a chance to not so much reset, but to re-establish, any sort of dominance and actually build form over 2 games before hitting into what is going to be a very, very heavy quarterfinal contest.
Mm.
So, where has our beloved bookie gone for this one? Is it another clean sweep, or is he thinking something else?
He's gone a clean sweep, Martin.
Oof, we being nice,
Well, I
being
miss
nice.
these days. Everyone going for the same team. We haven't had clean sweeps across the board for ages.
I know. I think we only had one last week. What was it the week before? One the week before. Da-da-da. Obviously, none the week before because obviously it was just the
Mm.
one game, really. One the week before that. I mean, we are going a while. I mean, we've got some really really tight games to go through. But now we come to our main event, our Thursday night lights, the demolishers of the Drovers, Cardiff, welcome Newport to the Arms Park. And the Newport team is already out there, but we do have Cardiff team news as well. So I'm going to run through the away side as fast as I can. So 15, Morgan Williams, Lloyd Lewis, Joe Westwood, Harry Ackerman, Ollie Andrew, halfbacks, Carwyn Penny, David Buckland. Then we go in the front row, Rodri Jones. That's a big time player, Welsh international dropping down. Henry Palmer, Ollie Drake. Then we got Josh Skinner, Callum Bradby in the row, Hunter Ward, Kyle Taylor, Ben Roach to the back row. Played quite a few times this season. We got Wade Langley, Harry Fry, Garen Harris, Kerrig Smith, Johan Reese Davis, Lucas Welch, Harrison James, and Che Foster Smith on the bench. Over to the Cardiff side, we got Matty Young at 15, Tom Bowen, Oshan Darwin Lewis, Steph Emmanuel, Dewi Cross in the outside backs, Harry Wild, Ethan Lloyd at halfback, Johan Emmanuel, Alan Rees, and Tom Harper in the front row. Craig had Ethan Phillips in the second row. Sonny McCabe, I'm not sure about this one. Ben Fry, Aled Ward to finish that back row. Replacements, we've got Tom Howe, Cam Tyler Grocott, Will Davis King, Tyrion Bowen, double Bowens for this one. Jason Harries, Joe Williams, Lloyd Lucas, and Reese Cummings. A 4-4 bench for the second week in a row. How should we be feeling about this one?
I think as a sign that it's a big game is the fact you have players like Rodri Jones dropping down. And it's probably one for another pod where you have these big players, the internationals, ex-internationals dropping in for big games only is probably a wider discussion. You could probably have an entire pod on it if I'm honest. I think looking at the Cardiff squad, they're pretty much fully stacked again. I love the bench at the moment. I'm not really sure about the split. I don't really know. I don't know. I think if your backs cover themselves, if you have three, you got your 9, your 10. You can usually have a 9 and your 10 and a 15 covered in one ticked off. But is your pack? You're gonna need four in the front, a three in the front row straight away. You need that. So then you're only giving yourself one, and this is going to be a really physical game, extremely physical. Newport love it up front. It's a stronger pack as they're going to name, but I think for me this could be won and lost in midfield. Like I said, you look at the two teams in terms of that midfield duo. You've got the Dragons duo of Westwood Ackerman in for Newport. Again, that's a huge pairing, and to have those playing together. And then, like I said, you've got Steph Emmanuel, Oshin, Darwin Lewis for Cardiff. That, he's your under 20s pairing effectively, and pushing into that pro level already. So that's the sort of the exciting battle for me. But I think it's going to be a really feisty and tasty encounter. Given that these are the two form teams, they are the best teams in Wales. I think this comes at a really good time. They want to both set a marker for the playoffs. It's unlikely that they're going to meet each other for a couple of rounds at least. Although, at the moment, I can see it finishing with the semi-finals being exactly the same as last year. I'll be honest. I can see it being Ebu Llandovery, Cardiff, Newport in some description. Doesn't matter where they actually played. That I think is where it's going to be. So I think they'll be setting out their stall in terms of what they want to do, and I think this is big one to come, and sort of especially this late in the season. And I'm hoping we'll have another quality game on S4C Click For me, oh, I'm really struggling to pick a winner in this. I am really, really struggling to pick a winner. Um, oh, this is tasty, man. Um, I'll be honest, I'm leaning Newport to win this one.
Ooh,
Yeah, I am.
wow. I mean, yeah, I'll lock it in. But
Lock it in, son. Lock him
wow,
in, sunshine.
wow. I mean, I can see this being the set one of the semi-finals. Like in this, at cap. I can see that. I do think you're 100% correct. But there, but like, ooh, it it's hard. I do think the Cardiff backs have got the edge, and you know, being at cap, being I going back to the pitch type soaked in teams.
Mm.
Again, this probably does suit both teams to a
Yeah,
certain extent. Obviously, Cardiff have obviously got a lot more familiarity.
this is why I'm thinking around Newport's here. Like Morgan Williams is great on the counter. He's rapid. He hits up. Lloyd Lewis, we know X7s. I know he's getting on a little bit now, but still has a rapid pace. Westwood Ackerman in midfield, again used to a fast track. Gonna be playing a fast tempo, high tempo, physical. Ollie Andrew, again, ex Dragon, sort of used to it. Caro and Penny and Dav Buckland may not enjoy it as much or may not be as attributed to a fast pitch, but all round, I think you got a back line for Newport that is suits and a back row and even that sort of the second row that want to carry. I think that's going to be crucial. Is going to be the quick ruck speed and allowing Newport's loose forwards to start getting in and around that park, and that's what I'm interested in. What's the workload like, especially if people like Rodri Jones coming in, because it's always interesting to see when you have someone of prestige coming in, what their workload is like and what they think they can get away with, because it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, 100%. It is good. It's Titanic in every sense of the word, and we've had some big clashes. Like we had a big clashes last week. Things didn't quite go to plan, but we saw an excellent game, and we're going to see an excellent game either way by year. But
Mm.
everything in me is saying it's at cap. I do think, even though obviously we've seen through the under 20s and under 19s, this Cardiff side, especially the back line, really be torn apart a little bit. I do see the Cardiff side as more settled all round, especially when we're talking about halfbacks. I mean, I am interested to see what the actual, squad availability is, seeing that 4-4 split. And, De La Rua played last week, but not there this week. Obviously, who are we missing? Is it Nathan Hood we're missing? I mean, there's some big game players for
Yeah,
Cardiff still.
the depth in it. That's what's worried me about Cardiff more than anything this year. It is the around that depth. They always get a quality 15, and they can cherry pick and gerrymander, you know, professional players to drop down for the big games. You only got to look at players in the Newport team this week. You got to look at the Ebervale games. You got to look at the Llandovery games. You go, actually, yeah, you can see the difference in who's dropping down. Um, but yeah, it's that bench that worries me with Cardiff. It never seems to come to fruition. I said the same last season around Christmas when under 20s go away, etc. And you're always, oh, are they going to be run a bit ragged? Are they going to be struggling the last 20? But it never seems to really affect their table position and form across multiple fixtures. But yeah, I think against a side like Newport, is you start to expose that if there's any frailties.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm interested to see Jason Harries in the back row. To be honest, that's the main reason I'm watching this game. Not the fact it's a big clash, not the fact that I watch these SRC games whenever they're on, but it's because it's Jason Harries potentially coming on the back row, and I would say he can probably do a job. He can probably do a job. But to finish off, where has Bucky laid his cards?
He didn't mess me with this one. No, I'm only joking. Of course he's messaged. And he hasn't gone with a draw, Martin.
Noah? Ooh,
No,
where's he
he's
swinging?
he's
He
going
does
with.
swing both ways, see?
He does swing both ways. That's the title of the pod. Swings both ways.
Maybe next week. This one's red, 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 isn't it?
He's gone with Cardiff.
Cardiff. So Cardiff
Cardiff.
win on the predictor table, and
Ooh.
that rounds up this week's edition of the SRC podcast. So as always, Rob, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure's
Everyone
all
listen.
yours, sir.
It really is, to be honest.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone listening. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do your thing. Love a bit of interaction when we get it. More breaking news, and it might not be actual physical breaks next time. But yeah, and we will leave it at that till next week and the final regular season round. Bye bye for now.
Super.
Super.